Hi everyone, in this e-lecture, we will be examining Stalin's political policies and its impact. In previous lessons, you have learned about Stalin's 5-year plans. The 5-year plans undoubtedly transformed the Soviet Union from a backward country to a powerful industrial superpower within 10 years. This was a remarkable achievement, considering the fact that other Western countries did this in 50 or even 100 years. However, we also remember the high human cost of his 5-year plans. For example, the bad harvest had led to the Great Famine in 1932-33. This led to a dramatic drop in grain harvest and animal population. Millions of peasants died of starvation and hardship. As a result, by 1933, the Communist Party was very unpopular. Forced collectivization and harsh treatment under industrialization led to a strained relationship between the Communist Party and the people. Within the Communist Party itself, there was growing opposition to Stalin's leadership. In 1932, former Moscow Party Secretary Ryutin circulated a document criticizing Stalin's leadership and even urged for Stalin's removal. Therefore, in order to consolidate or strengthen his power and enforce party discipline, Stalin wanted to eliminate his enemies and remove any opposition to the Soviet government. He did this through a series of campaigns or political repression and purges between 1934 to 38. This period became known as the Great Terror. So enter the Stalinator. The Great Terror was characterized by show trials, arrests and interrogations, widespread police surveillance and execution. There was an extensive purge or eradication of the political rivals to Stalin. Those who were caught were put on show trials. In these trials, there was no proper legal process. The accusations and verdicts were presented as an example, and there was no attempt to prove the possible innocence of the accused. Many of them often confessed to crimes they did not commit, after being tortured or having their families threatened. In addition, Stalin's secret police arrested, questioned and forced people to inform against their friends and families who voiced their opposition against Stalin. Many of them were killed on the spot or sent to forced labor camps. It was reported in 1937 that close to 39 million were executed and 3 million imprisoned in the forced labor camps. Many of them died from overwork, poor living conditions, and ill treatment. Now, who exactly were the targets under the Great Terror? Firstly, there were the political rivals. For example, Kamenev, Zinoviev, and Bukharin were accused of conspiring with Trotsky to overthrow the government. They were tried in show trials before being executed. The Red Army was also not spared. It was Trotsky's original power base, as Trotsky was the commander of the Red Army. Stalin needed the loyalty of the Red Army. Therefore, high-ranking commanders were arrested, tortured into confession, and shot. They were then replaced by younger, inexperienced members of the party who were loyal to Stalin. This ensured the loyalty of the Red Army. At the same time, engineers, scientists, and other skilled workers and administrators in the government service were also targets under the Great Terror. Many of them opposed Stalin's 5-year plans and were eliminated as traitors. What were the results of Stalin's Great Terror? This was the original picture of the Central Committee of the Bolshevik Party in 1917. What has happened to most of them by 1938? Let's take a closer look. Trotsky, murdered 1940, Kamenev, shot 1936, Zinoviev, shot 1936, Bukharin, shot 1938, Rykov 1938, Tomsky suicide 1936. Only Stalin survived. As a result of the Great Terror, the Red Army lost many experienced officers. This will have a negative impact on the Red Army against the German military during World War II. Secondly, with the elimination of scientists and intellectuals, science and technology suffered. Many important workers were lost during the 5-year plan. Without qualified engineers and architects, factories produced poor quality goods and faulty infrastructure like dams and bridges. Industry suffered. The quality of the civil sector was affected as many administrators and teachers were executed. All these experienced workers were replaced by the younger ones who owed their success and positions to Stalin. This made them completely loyal to Stalin. This in turn ensured that Stalin was firmly and securely in control of the whole of Soviet Union. Was it all terror and fear under Stalin then? No. Stalin also made use of propaganda to make his rule look legitimate or valid. Through the use of propaganda such as posters, songs or news articles, Stalin sought to build a cult of personality for himself. He portrayed himself as the rightful successor to Lenin. Achievements of the Soviet Union were credited to Stalin's wise leadership. At the same time, he was often depicted as a wise and loving father who was modest and continued wearing ordinary clothes despite being the leader of the Soviet Union. All offices, factories and classrooms were required to have a picture of Stalin. At the same time, propaganda was also used to discredit Stalin's rivals. Portions of Soviet history were rewritten to discredit his rivals. Photographs were also edited to remove unwanted people. This made opposition against him even more impossible. Here are some examples of Stalin's cult of personality. As you can see in this poster, Stalin is surrounded by many children, and he looks on lovingly, like a loving and wise father. Secondly, on the right is the poster with Stalin overlooking the construction of a modern dam. And here are two poems written in praise of Stalin. At the same time, photo editing was done to remove Stalin's rival. Do bear in mind that all these were done before Photoshop technology. So what are the results of Stalin's political policies? In a nutshell, they boosted Stalin's authority and status. With the elimination of his rivals, Stalin was firmly the supreme leader of the Soviet Union, with no one to oppose him. And with the Great Terror and propaganda, opposition was impossible. We have come to the end of the e-lecture. Do make sure you have completed your notes.